Welcome to the Creek Road Baptist Pulpit. These weekly podcasts feature expository messages delivered to edify the soul. Now let's join Pastor Dave as he presents this week's message.
Genesis chapter 37. I'm going to begin a series of messages that will lead us up to Easter. There are 10 Sundays, including this one, until Easter Sunday, which is the last Sunday of March. So Easter comes a little bit early this year. 10 Sundays. We're going to do 5 Sundays in the Old Testament, 5 Sundays in the New Testament, going from Genesis to the crucifixion of Christ. And I'm calling this series of sermons, Killing Jesus. And I was thinking about that, and the Lord just sort of inspired me to think about how many things there are that need to die in our life, and how many things there are that can never, ever die. And those are wonderful things. And we're going to start with the wonderful thing that can never die today. It's the story of Joseph. And I'm going to call this message today, Killing Joseph, the Dreamer. So if you'll look there in Genesis chapter 37, let's see. We'll begin reading in verse 12. His father sends him. And his brethren went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. And Israel said unto Joseph, Do not thy brethren feed the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send thee unto them. And he said to him, Here am I. And he said unto him, Go, I pray thee, see whether it be well with thy brethren, and well with the flocks, and bring me word again. So he sent him out of the vale of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. And a certain man found him, and behold, he was wandering in the field. And the man said unto him, saying, What seekest thou? And he said, I seek my brethren. Tell me, I pray thee, where they feed their flocks. And the man said, They are departed hence, for I heard them say, Let us go to Dothan. And Joseph went after his brethren, and found them in Dothan. And when they saw him afar off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him. And they said to one another, Behold, this dreamer cometh. Come now, therefore, and let us slay him, and cast him into some pit. And we will say, Some evil beast hath devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. And Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands, and said, Let us not kill him. And Reuben said unto them, Shed no blood, but cast him into this pit, and that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might rid him out of their hands to deliver him to his father again. And it came to pass, when Joseph was come unto his brethren, that they stripped Joseph out of his coat of many colors, that was on him. And they took him and cast him into a pit, and the pit was empty, there was no water in it. And they sat down to eat bread, and they lifted up their eyes, and looked, and behold, a company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead with their camels, bearing spicery and balm and myrrh, going to carry it down to Egypt. And Judah said unto his brethren, What profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh. And his brethren were content. Then passed by the Midianite merchantmen, and they drew and lifted Joseph out of the pit, and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. And they brought Joseph into Egypt. Killing Joseph. Verse 18 says, When they saw him afar off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him. I think a very good question to ask at this point is, why? Why would they want to kill their own brother? Well, you go back up into the chapter and we find all the reasons why, buried nicely or set nicely in this chapter, in chapter 37. If you look at verse 4, just right up there in verse 4, we see the first thing. Verse 4 says, And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him. So there you go. This is a loving family, isn't it? Wow. What a great bunch. They hated Joseph because their dad loved him. Now, why does Israel love Joseph more than all of his brothers? Well, look at verse 3, just above that. Now, Israel loved Joseph more than all his children because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. And guess what coat Joseph always wore? He wore that coat. Well, sure he would wear that coat because it's a prized coat. His father gave it to him, and it's beautiful. It must have been absolutely gorgeous, spun and woven with all these many colors in it. It must have glistened in the sunlight, and every time his brothers saw that coat, they must have winced in pain because they knew what that coat represented. That coat meant Dad loved him more than them. And probably Joseph liked to wear that coat just for that very reason. He probably wore it around the house, and he probably wore it out when he went to church, and he probably wore it when he went to the marketplace, and he probably wore it when he went to see his brothers in the field, and probably wore it when he kept the sheep. He wore it all the time because he wanted everybody to know how much his dad loved him. Now, remember where we are in the birth order here. Reuben's the oldest. He's the firstborn. And then we come down to Joseph and Benjamin, who are the last two boys born in this family. So Joseph is next to the last child in the family of Jacob. So he's not the youngest, but almost. He's next to the youngest one. The youngest one is still just a boy. And it says of Joseph that he's 17 years old. So he's a young man. He's becoming a man. When you're 17, you think you are a man. So he must have thought he was. And he thought he was a big shot. And, of course, he's the most loved. And yet, he's got all these brothers up in front of him. And so he's wearing this coat around because that's an emblem of his dad's love. And his brothers hate him. Notice verse 8. I missed one. First of all is that his brothers hate him because Dad loves him. Second of all, notice there in verse 4, it says they could not speak peaceably to him. That's how bad it was. That's how much they hated this boy. They couldn't even talk to him without getting angry. Dad loved him, so he gave him that coat, and of course he loved him more than all the other brothers. Made sure that everybody knew it. Verse 8 is the fourth reason that they want to kill him. His brethren said to him, "Shalt thou indeed reign over us?" This is after he tells them his dream. "And have dominion over us?" And they hated him yet the more for his dreams and for his words. So not only is he wearing the coat, but he's telling them his dream. And his dream was that they would bow down to him. Remember the dreams? He had two dreams. So they hated him even more so they hate him, first of all, because Dad loves him more than he does the rest of them. And because Dad gave him the coat. And they can't speak peaceably to him. And now Joseph has a dream that everybody in the family is going to bow down to him. And he's next to the youngest, so that's not going to happen. And they hate him even more for that. And then verse 10, he told the dream to his father and to his brethren, and his father rebuked him and said, "What is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee to the earth?" So not only did he tell them, that's one thing, but he even was brash enough to tell Dad and Mom the same dream. Oh, they did not like their brother. But is it still enough to kill him? Well, apparently for them it was. They just despised him because of all of these things. Dad's love, his dreams, his brashness. And you can just imagine he's a young man and he's trying to, kind of elbow his way into position in the family. He wants to be the man, And he looks up probably to his older brothers, but he wants to make sure they know that he's the one. And, oh, by the way, I had a dream. And where do dreams come from? They come from the Lord. And he had two dreams, both dreams the same. One about the stars, the sun and the moon, bowing down to him. The other one about the sheaves in the field bowing down to him. Two dreams. And remember what Joseph tells us about dreams. When dreams are doubled, it certifies this is what God is going to do. So this is certainly God's word to this family. They're all going to bow down to Joseph. They say there in verse 17, we're going to kill him. They see him coming from a distance. Notice there in verse 18 it says, they saw him afar off. Sure they did. You know why they saw him afar off? The coat. They saw that coat coming. And they knew there's only one coat like that. And only one person would wear that coat on a long journey, and that would be Joseph. So they see the coat coming, and they say to themselves, before he came near, they conspired with one another. They said, let's just kill him. That's a good plan. Let's just kill him and be done with it. Verse 19, and they said to one another, behold, this dreamer cometh. They couldn't even call his name. This dreamer. That's how much they despised him. And you notice that the dream here is the target of the attack. The dreamer cometh. If they kill Joseph, the dreamer, the dream won't come true, because there won't be anybody to bow down to. The father nor the brothers could conceive of the future Joseph dreamed about. Could they? Of course they couldn't. How could anybody ever get their mind around the next to the last son in the family and everybody's bowing to him? In what world does that exist? Well, I'll tell you what world it exists in. It exists in a world that's about to be completely changed by a famine. They don't know what's going to happen. They don't know what's about to happen. Now, it's not yet, because it's not until Joseph is 30 years old. So he's 17 right now. He's got to get to be 30 years old. From 17 to 30. That's a long time. And they don't know what's going to happen, and they don't care what's going to happen, because all they know is they hate Joseph, and they certainly hate this dream. And all they can think about is killing him, because they're not going to bow down to him. They're not about to bow down to the one that Dad loves over all. Not going to do it. They're jealous, and they're envious, and they're hateful in their hearts. They say, look, here comes this dreamer. They said to one another. Verse 20. Now, let us slay him and cast him into some pit. Notice the casual, offhanded way they say that. Come, let us slay him, and we'll just discard the body. We'll find a hole and dump him in it. That's the idea. They're going to kill him and dump him in a hole. And in that hole, nobody will ever find him, because he will be eaten, he will decay, he will be covered up with water once it rains, and nobody will ever know that there's a body in there ever. And so that was a pretty good plan. I mean, if you're going to kill somebody in the wilderness, dump them in a hole. And we will say, so not only are they conceiving of the attack, but now they have an excuse. We will say, and who are they going to say this to? They're going to say this to Jacob, because all the brethren now are going to be together in this. They're not going to tell anybody. So what are they going to do? They're going to go back and they're going to tell Jacob. And here's what they say. Some evil beast hath devoured him. Some evil beast. Now the Hebrew here is very interesting, because that word that's translated here in the King James, and you might have a different translation in your Bible. The word that's translated here, beast, in the King James, is actually the Hebrew word for life. A living thing. So it's not necessarily a beast of the field, but just a living thing. So, it could be translated a living thing. It could be translated, if we wanted to do something sci-fi, we could call it a life form. Some evil life form. And that's really what it means. But I would like to translate it, I would like to suggest the translation evil thing here instead of evil beast. The word beast means a living thing, and so I think the translation evil thing kind of works, because the brothers have become that. The brothers have become that. In verse 11 it says, his brethren envied him. Envy always turns us into an evil thing, and we shall see what will become of his dreams, they say. We'll just say some evil thing hath killed him, hath torn him, and, notice the language there, devoured him, ate him up. Some evil thing has eaten him up. Well, guess what? Some evil thing was about to eat him up, but it wasn't an evil thing that lives in the dark dens and holes of the forest. It's the evil thing that dwells in the breast of a man. That's the evil thing that was going to eat up Joseph, and rob Jacob of his son that he loved. In the breast of a man is an evil thing, and it's fueled by envy. It's fueled by rage. That's the evil thing that's a problem for Joseph in this story. It's his brothers. And we shall see what will become of his dreams. Yeah, see, the evil thing, ladies and gentlemen,